all stand as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Lisa, would you please read the opening statement and call the roll?
This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with the Senator Byron M. Baer Open Public Meetings Act, the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority set its annual meeting schedule for August 2018 through July 2019, setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting to the Secretary of State's office in Trenton, New Jersey, and the office of the Clerk of Atlantic City. The notice was published in the Press of Atlantic City, the Camden Courier Post, and the New York Star Ledger on July 23rd, 2018, and July 24th, 2018. Members of the press have been permitted to take photographs at today's meeting, providing that it is done in a manner which is not distracting to the authority nor interferes with the public's right to observe the meeting. Any member of the public who wishes to address the authority regarding items to be presented to the board today will be given the opportunity to do so. Comments regarding any issues that do not appear on today's agenda will be taken during the public comment portion at the end of the meeting. We ask that members of the public who address the board stand and state their name and address for the record each time they speak on an issue. It is also requested that comments be limited to 3 minutes per issue. Lodia Butler?
Present.
Deborah DiLorenzo?
Present.
Ed Gant?
Here.
Mark Antonio?
Here.
Mayor Frank Gilliam?
Here.
Michael Hanley?
Here.
Gary Hill? Howard Kyle?
Here.
William Muller?
Here.
Kevin Ortzman? James Closis?
Here.
Dave Rebuck for the State Attorney General?
Here.
Maureen Hassett for the State Treasurer?
Here.
Robert Long for the DCA Commissioner?
Here.
Frank Spencer? Vice Chairman Richard Tolson?
Here.
Chairman Bob?
Here.
Robert Mulcahy, excuse
Here.
me.
Before we go into the order of the day, I'd like to first congratulate Mr. Tolson. Thank you. The governor has appointed him as the vice chair. I was happy to make the application for him. I think that for a couple of reasons. One is he lives in the area. He has a long-time interest in Atlantic City, and he's been a pleasure to work with. And so, Rich, we all welcome you and
Thank you.
wish you well, and
I
look forward to working with you.
look forward to the opportunity. Thank you.
Wish to say anything?
I'm honored by the administration's confidence and that of the board, and specifically you, Mr. Chairman, for making the recommendation. And truthfully, I look forward to implementing the goals of this authority to the benefit of the residents of Atlantic City.
Terrific. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is ratification of the minutes of the January 22nd, 2019 meeting. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any corrections or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. Next item on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report. Matt?
No report from me, Chairman.
So then we go to the proposed items for today. The first item on the agenda is a land use regulation and enforcement issue. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce this. Looks like New York Orange Deeds LLC.
That's it.
Is that correct?
It's got the first shot.
Preliminary and final site plan approval with variance relief. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority granting preliminary and final site plan approval with variance relief to construct a mixed-use development to include an approximately 10,000 square foot retail building, a 10-room shipping container hotel with an entertainment area and a stage, restrooms, seasonal concession stand, a seasonal bar, and 53 new parking spaces on the property located at 161 through 205 South New York Avenue and 118 through 142 St. James Place in the city of Atlantic City, Block 52, lots 11 through 18 and 30 through 40, under application 2018-11-2555.
Anybody need to be recused from this issue? This development proposal includes approximately 10,000 square foot building, as she said. My question, Matt, is what is a shipping container hotel precisely?
So it is a hotel comprised of shipping containers. This will be a shipping container park. I've never stayed in a shipping container hotel, but it'll be up to all the proper codes and standards. The gentleman who's doing this currently owns Blue Ray, the new restaurant in between St. James and New York. He's been a very successful developer in places like New Brunswick and more recently in Asbury Park.
So, but it's a 10-room hotel.
It is a boutique hotel catering really towards millennials.
Okay?
Shipping container.
Yeah.
Is this the new Atlantic City? The shipping container?
For this location, it is.
The
I've
site
heard that
is,
before.
the site is 161-205 South New York Avenue at 118-142 St. James Place. It's located in the Resort Commercial District. The applicant has requested major preliminary and final site plan approval for variances for a rear yard setback of 15 feet where a minimum rear yard setback is 20 feet, and for 53 parking spaces where 120 feet, 20 parking spaces are required. A waiver for fence height was also requested by the applicant. It was a public hearing conducted on January 3rd, and based on the evidence and testimony provided, as outlined in the hearing officer report, the preliminary and final site plan approval with 2 requested variances and waiver can be approved based on the testimony provided by the applicant and his professionals based on solid land use planning and engineering testimony. The hearing officer has recommended that the preliminary and final site plan with variances be granted for the following reasons. The applicant presented testimony that the application would advance the purposes of the municipal land use law by promoting a desirable visual environment based on the aesthetics of the overall site and its impact on the neighboring land uses in the tourism district. And secondly, the evidence and testimony demonstrates that the grant of the requested variance will not create any detriment to the public good. It will not substantially impair the purpose and intent of the tourism district master plan and the tourism district land development rules. Board discussion.
In the public hearing, did they actually present a rendering or a picture of what it would look like?
Lance?
Yes, sir, I have it if you want to put it up. It might take me a second to get it fired up. Yes.
I think we'd like to see it, right?
There should be something in the package that shows the overall site. He's creating it as a, kind of an add-on to his current restaurant.
And this is something that has happened already in urban areas, New York.
Yes.
I've seen this. I'm not necessarily a fan, I'm just saying that they do exist in other urban areas.
Yeah, this is Mo. I've actually seen something similar to this in old Las Vegas. I took a tour of a site like this that was built out. Basically, built a park surrounded by retail commercial space that were containers. That was pretty nice layout, really well designed, and really well programmed out. So if anything similar to that, I've seen it work before.
Hey Mo, this is Bob. When you saw it, did you like it?
Yeah, actually I did. I thought it was a really unique, cool concept. And again, it was usable, it was really well programmed. A lot of folks were sort of, and it's not in like the new Las Vegas, this was in old Las Vegas that, people stopped going to. So this is like sort of one of those projects to help sort of, I don't want to say, to regenerate that area. So it looks cool, and when I was out there, it looked like it was working.
I appreciate that very much.
What about the comment, I'm just gonna make a comment, we're going down to the parking. Have you looked at the parking there, Lance, on this?
Yes.
Because it should be, according to this, 120 spaces?
Correct.
And the parking is
demand
53?
Correct.
I guess the part that I don't like is when they reference using street parking to meet the other requirements, which seems as what they're out of the vicinity of the property on street.
So there's not only on-street, but the sites are surrounded by surface parking lots. So there's adequate parking in that neighborhood now to provide that off-site parking. So this is a look at the entrance side of the boutique hotel. The units, you can see them stacked, just 2 stories. The entrance comes around this side. There's no
It's like a southern ranch.
front desk here. You sign up for this online, use your cell phone to get into the rooms. So there's really no front desk there. We do have Nick Talbacchi, who's the applicant's attorney here as well, And then if I skip anything, Nick, you can help me with that.
Do you have a rendering as well, Lance, that shows them where the stage goes?
Yeah, that's the next one up,
Courtyard.
okay. If I can find a pointer.
That's it.
So you can see the kind of grayish building there to the bottom left, that's the stage. There's an area in front of that that is set up for, you know, spectators to whatever music is playing. The red building to the bottom left would be the vendor occupied other containers where they would put vendors in there, as the blue and orange ones coming back towards the bar. The bar is the large black building to the bottom right of the site.
So, Lance, the street at the bottom is New York Avenue?
Correct, yes. And St. James is just at the top.
So this is in the, what they're referring to as the orange loop.
This is the orange loop. Mr. Fasano is one of the first there, along with the other group with Mark Plaza and Evan Sanchez.
What's the square feet of the hotel room?
Whatever a shipping container is individually. They put the two together to make the one unit. So you come in, you get double wide. Sorry for the.
Are all the buildings going to be shipping? Are all the buildings going to be shipping containers?
Yes. Well, no, I take that back. The first building, the 10,000 square foot office building, that'll front on St. James is going to look similar to that. It's not going to have the Jetty name on it, but that's the building that'll be on St. James.
So they have an office building as well as a hotel?
That's correct.
Retail.
Retail, yeah, I'm sorry, not office, I say office.
Twice.
Is the hotel inspected and regulated like the hotels we're familiar with, or is this more like an Airbnb?
It'll be a regular hotel. Whatever regulations apply. I mean, it's only the construction that varies. It's a 10-unit hotel. By the way, the client had the idea from a very attractive container hotel in Costa Rica where he tried visits, and that was presented at the hearing.
There's some of the interior layouts.
Mr. Chairman, I'm more concerned about, I mean, the parking's, it just seems like we could do this once, but we're not doing this 3 times on the parking issue. Would that be a fair assumption to say on the redevelop, just like first come, first served, with a deficiency in parking?
It would appear that way, Ed. Is that correct, Lance?
Because that is beach block, right, Lance?
It is, yes.
So the street parking is minimal at best.
Yes,
But there are parking lots in the area.
there are surface lots all over the area.
Not owned by this,
No.
Correct, not owned by this.
so access to them is unknown at this point.
It's pay to park. They're all pay to
Again,
park.
we're talking about a development plan that if we're successful on Tennessee Avenue, all those parking lots will disappear. I just think for us to be considering something that's so far off in the parking, we ought to at least talk about it. That has a concern for me.
Can I jump in here as I presented the
Nick.
case? Nick Talbacchia. So one of the things we talked about at the hearing, and it's a real phenomenon, is the so-called Uber effect. So if you Google that Uber effect, you'll see that a lot of garage owners nationwide, there's the container hotel in Costa Rica, but are stating that they're losing business. Remember, this parking also serves the restaurant bar, which really only had 2 spaces or 3 spaces to begin with. We're counting in that 120 space requirement the restaurant, but the restaurant bar has operated for many years with essentially no parking. The Uber effect, and this is what they're saying throughout the nation, it probably is attributable to a 25% reduction in parking at restaurants because people are taking Uber rather than driving. So that was part of our argument for less parking. 2 is there's a trend in urban design to actually have less parking, and people will figure out how to get there. People are already in Atlantic City, they're staying at hotels, and we want them to walk here. We
Most
want them
people
to-
drive to this destination, correct? Is that fair to say, Mr. Chair? I don't want to ask this side, I'm going to ask this side. This is a drive-to resort, as far as I remember it being?
Right now, there's no trains.
So again, on a drive resort, we're being asked to consider over a 50% deficiency
That's
on the
correct.
parking. I am very concerned for one, on a beach block project.
If this were, my response, if this were an area where there's a lot of development going on right now and built up, I'd share that concern. I agree with you that it's something we have to keep an eye on when further projects come along, but right now, I wouldn't let that hold us back. I can't think of anything that's been built that's been privately funded in the beach blocks in at least 20 years. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, Tennessee Avenue retail.
I mean, new construction, new construction. The last thing I can think of in the beach blocks is the Hotel Chelsea.
And Atlantic City
Non-casino.
is generally overparked. We have far more parking than we need, and many people who go to bars and restaurants are already in the city for some other reason. They're staying at a hotel, or they might just walk down the boardwalk. So there's trams, there's jitneys, there's Uber, and that was the argument for the reduction of parking. What we don't need in Atlantic City is a sea of parking lots. What we need is buildings and development.
And there are surface lots in the area.
All over the place, and you have metered parking, which is well regulated. You pay your money, and if you're not out of there in 3 hours, you're gonna get a ticket. So there's a lot of turnover of parking.
Not a perfect solution, but it's workable.
From a land use standpoint, the city has a surplus of surface parking lots as well as the lots that are, the spaces that are in casinos.
Mayor?
All right, comments, other comments from board members?
I support the concept. This was something that was featured in Dwell maybe like 5 years ago. It's not something that's phenomenal. You go to Amsterdam, they created an entire university out of boxcar housing. So it's not one of those things where you're looking at a train boxcar, because you can also put a facade on the front of it and not tell that it's a boxcar. But I think that this brings a new element to the town. I think it brings excitement. And when you really look at them, they could be a real nice amenity as to waterfront housing, because you can actually cut the walls out and allow it to basically have open space in the whole nine. But I think that for this particular block is, again, I mentioned it at the executive meeting, to have folks down there doing what they're doing and investing money in an area that was considered a no investment zone is exciting for me. I think it's a way to also create potentially a district for box cars at some point. But for this particular process, I think that, again, I've been pushing for this for some years. It just got approved by code on the state level because it was not a part of the code. So I think it's a new wave that the state and the city, I'm happy to be one of the first entities to have it, actually.
Other comments from board members or questions?
One, Mr. Chairman, if I could. Nick, feedback from the neighborhood?
Nobody showed up to hearing.
Was there any outreach to beyond that to?
We send out the notices 200 feet, well over 100 notices.
Required, but
Most of it's vacant land?
a lot of it is, yeah.
No, I mean, the Irish pub got notice. I think the
Okay.
condo at Atlantic Palace got notice.
And there was no opposition.
No, in fact, well, we had one supporter, Mike Lopez, came, supported it.
And I can tell you, Mr. Vice Chair, that...
Thank you, Mr. Executive.
Vice Chair, it's a big deal. The businesses along Tennessee, whether it's the coffee shop or the new beer hall and the yoga studio, all three of them, separate owners, all approached me telling me that they supported this project.
That's what I was leading to, is the hope that the neighborhood supports it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did talk to, and I represent some of those other owners in that area, like Mark Plaza, and they're 100%, because that started creating a critical mass, and Mr. Gann's correct, at some point parking will be an issue, but I don't think now, I mean, there's the New York Avenue garage, which is close by, it's somewhat empty. We have the ability to rent spaces. This is going to be driven by business demands. If there's not enough parking, the business will find parking. A lot of boardwalk places, and until CRDA did zoning, for 30 years, Atlantic City had a 85% reduction in required parking if you were within 300 feet of the jitney line. So projects that we did for decades had virtually no parking that were beach block, and it seems to work. I haven't seen really a problem with parking in Atlantic City in the last 30, 40 years. I don't think this will be a problem because, again, I really believe a lot of people going to this orange loop are already in Atlantic City for another reason, or they'll pay a few dollars to park on the street, or they'll pay a few dollars to park in the garage, and that's how it kind of works around here.
Other comments, Maureen?
First, I like the project, and I'm familiar with the doctor's good work in Asbury Park. But just a question, as this is a bulk variance request, there is a representation that the property is far below the permitted impervious coverage. So my question is, if the applicant needed to develop those parking spaces, would that still be true?
I'm trying to understand.
They would have, if they had to build those additional parking spaces, they would have exceeded the repurposed coverage.
Yeah, and really you can see on what the area that we highlight, there's a little bit of green space which we need to handle the stormwater management and best practices that DEP requires. There really is not a lot of room on this site to add more parking, but we think it's a waste of asphalt, and we just don't think they're needed for most of the time. Again, I state we're
I understand the
overparked.
reasoning behind it, but just in terms of the findings of fact, to say that you're meeting the purpose C because you're doing less impervious coverage, there's just a disconnect there.
Well, on the parking variance, yeah, I think the major argument, I'm not reading what you have in front of you right now, I have read it, but, is that we talked about the overall amount of parking in the area, the fact that many people already park somewhere else, the Uber effect, which is a new
Right.
phenomenon, and we do have some parking, and
Yeah.
the retail is probably gonna have a different peak period than the restaurant. The hotel, we need 10 spaces for the hotel, we'll have that. They'll be parked there. And, you know, if the owner, Mr. Fasano, doesn't have enough parking for his bar and restaurant, he'll go to another bar and restaurant. I mean, that's just what happens in an urban environment.
Other comments questions from board members?
Yes, with regard to the outdoor stage, what's the anticipated capacity in terms of persons who could attend? I guess it'd be a music event. then.
Yeah, and so, right now, the Beret Restaurant, he does small groups that he's been doing in Asbury Park for music on, I think, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Thursday nights. It's way too late for me, but 8, 9 at night, so. That, he's found that to be successful, and he's going to try to duplicate that, though, on the outside when the weather's, better. I don't know, Lance, you remember what we talked about, number of people? Looking at them,
It's not 1,000 people come in there
No.
for events, something like that. It's a small area. If you see it right in front of the stage there, labeled in pea
Do you have the
gravel.
dimensions on it? Is it 20 by 20, 50 by 50?
Yeah, if you look at the parking spaces,
A couple hundred people?
it's a couple, if you eyeball it,
Total site.
It's
It's got area behind there as well.
it's not the grass area, it is that pea gravel area. And you see the stage, it's not a huge area. It'll pull, some people off the beach during the day. Some people are already at the garage, instead of sitting inside, they'll sit outside.
Other questions from board members? Public comment. Mr. Cheatham.
Well, I like the concept of developing vacant land, because that's all we have right now is vacant land in our city. So this parking, now, I don't know about young folks, I just know about old folks. And I'm always looking for parking spaces. Okay? Now, if I gotta have a hard time trying to find a parking space on that street to go to any of these activities, I think I'll be very upset, because that's all we have is space. And this young man that's having a project in mind to even bring here, he needs to start having this land for parking, not thinking about it, have it on his to-do list. Give him a certain amount of time to get that list and start operating that list. Because I'd rather see him with the parking spaces from the get-go, without having to get it later, because it won't cost him more money later than now. He needs to think that way. Now, that's just me. But the project itself is a good thing. Something different, prefabricated, should go up pretty fast, like next week. Okay?
The
Now,
retail building's not prefabricated.
this parking situation, our mayor needs to keep in mind that our city needs to start sharing from the revenue on these parking lots. And keep that in mind now. Start sharing some of that revenue on parking spaces that goes on in this city that we don't get a dime. We don't get a dime. And we need all the revenue we can generate in our city to keep things going. Thank you.
Other comments from the public?
Yes, next question. Nick, if this is approved today, when do you think it gets completed?
He wants to move quickly. You know, we have the appeal period, so call that 80 days from today if it's approved. He's anxious, you know, the Verizon's operating. He wants to, I don't think.
Real fast, just to correct one. So it's not, Borai
I
is
don't know.
another development. This, well, the restaurant you're talking about is called Boo-Ray.
Hooray, thank you.
So
Hooray.
everyone knows where he's
Gotta
talking.
get your
I had
Cajun
trouble
down.
with that. The current restaurant obviously is operating. I think he wants to get at least the stage in place and that for the summer, if we can start doing some outdoor music. The retail, he's ready to go on that. The parking's ready to go. So I can't give you, I don't know off the top of my head, but
Is this project gonna, is this gonna be up and running by, say, the 4th of July? Are we gonna see this in place?
well, the retail can't be built that place that fast, and I don't think the hotel can be built that fast, but some of it can be.
All right, other comments from, yes, sir, in the back.
How you doing?
State
Ron
your
Pugh.
name.
Ron Pugh, how you doing?
Good.
So I'm just curious, how many jobs are you looking to create for the city with this project?
Well, the retail, there'll be a tenant there at some point. I don't know how many employees they're going to have, but there'll be certainly jobs. The hotel is not going to create that many new jobs because it'll be operated through the restaurant, through like an app, you know, front desk.
Okay.
There won't be a specific, but, you know, I'd be lying if I told you I knew the exact number.
Is this high-end retail? What type of retail is this? Because the boardwalk is full of nonsense right
It's not going
now.
to be a t-shirt shop, I'll tell you that.
Okay, we don't need any more of that. Caesar's Pier 1, that was high-end, it flopped.
Yep.
We've got the walk, we need something different.
Yep.
So I'm just curious as to what kind of retail are you envisioning possibly to go into here?
We have a letter of intent to lease it, but there's a non-disclosure, so I can't
Okay.
disclose who that is right now.
Okay, and then the last question would be, I feel like this could be a great project. I can see the vision here, but I also feel like any new retailer, any new developer needs to guarantee Atlantic City residents some type of job to keep it here. You know, all these casinos are operating. I mean, I guess a majority of the people kind of live here in Atlantic City, but in order to give our people some hope with these new developments, we need to see the vision. And we need to see that promise that we too can live here, work here, and be just as successful as the person coming in from outside and doing the same thing.
No, understood.
Okay.
That's a common theme throughout all the developments, and I think most developers are committed to do that. In fact, there's an advantage of hiring local people because they're closer to work, so.
All right, I'd like to see that happen. Thank you.
Nick?
Other comments?
I just have a quick comment. Have you thought about valet parking?
If necessary, we've talked about a lot of things.
Okay.
About even renting spaces, but Mr. Fasano has 4 bars and restaurants in Asbury. And he is confident that this will work based on his experience of 20 years.
If you have a question.
Just your name and address for the record.
Judy Ludovico.
If you look at the parking, the far right is the parking lot. It's a major parking lot almost next to the boardwalk, is predominantly used by the state. Right?
Yeah.
The arcade building.
Correct.
And those lots become significantly available at no use on the weekends.
Correct.
And obviously late at night.
Yeah.
So I don't know what factor you're putting on that for usage of that, but there's probably the same number of spaces that you're building, right?
Yeah. I mean,
That are available next to the Cajun restaurant.
Yeah, again, the operator doesn't want to have a business that is short of parking. No operator
I know,
does.
I'm just saying, he knows those slots are already available.
Yeah,
His restaurants
and there's
there
other-
probably uses them all the time
Yeah,
now.
it's very common to lease spaces in Atlantic City.
He's not
for
leasing
businesses.
it, he's just using it for free.
Who is?
I'm sure he's not leasing those things.
I'm talking in general.
Yes, we'd like to lease it, we need some money for the state of New Jersey too.
Well, we may be getting off topic.
I'd like to welcome the Director of the Board of Freeholders from Atlantic County, our old friend Frank from Inca. Frank,
The former director, but thank you, Chairman.
will you be around again?
Maybe. I wasn't going to weigh in on this one, but it makes good sense to me that Mr. Gant's comments about the parking are credible in most situations. But this is in support of in an area that you've already invested money. So you already have money invested in the Orange Loop, and I can't think of anything better than seeing new development. So the synergy is going to more or less give it more success factor than it normally would. And I would certainly like to see that in Atlantic City because it's something new, something cutting edge. It gets us out of our usual stick of brick and mortar and gives some people in a different market, younger people, something to look at. So I would be in support of that. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong, does the CRDA own any lots in the beach block? Any beach block? Or between Atlantic and Pacific? It wouldn't be a bad idea to consider this. You know, visitors come here and they have certain parking lots they know to go to, and the lots vary, and the prices vary from $5 to $35 depending on what's at the hall. It would not be a bad idea to maybe look at some of those lots, as somebody suggested, for revenue generating that would be a convenience to the visitors.
Thank you, Frank. Yes.
A few things. I'd like to remind the CRDA, Jeff Rosenberger, Beachgate Pacific Avenue. The South Jersey Transportation Authority owns a multi-story parking lot 1 block from there that is currently underutilized as that area of town is decimated. Secondly, the first time I saw this concept is somewhere around 10 years ago. Somewhere around 7 years ago, I designed a multi-story, it was about a 5-story hotel where they were plopping 2 more stories of these shipping containers on it for a new, cool, urban look. It was very well received. Thirdly, what Nick said, traditionally, we did not worry about parking in the beach block. We worried about getting people in there, and you pointed out Asbury Park. I know you're from Ocean City. My last trip to Asbury Park, I walked 3/4 of a mile to get to where I was going because I wanted to be there and because they were out of paid parking. You go to festivals all the time. You'll walk where you want to walk to get where you have to go. We need to create the synergy in the town to get where we have to go, and I think this is a step in the right direction. Another thing, you brought up the adjoining property owners. I have talked to most of them. I have not heard one bad word about this, not one. And finally, someone brought up Airbnb. You should know that the city licenses Airbnb. They inspect it 3 times a year. You need a 3 seasonal license. I think it's $400 per license, and all Airbnbs are now policed in this community for safety regulations.
Thank you, Jeff. Other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Sean Reardon, Atlantic City resident. Definitely for this project. I think that it's looking forward for to spur new development. I also think that the applicant, the nature of them being like almost first to market there should get taken into effect. I get the parking requirement, and I get that if every single one of those lots was developed, that we might be short of parking. But maybe granting that variance to incentivize them to get in there and lowering that requirement is a good way to get started. And down the road, when all this land is even more desirable, then maybe we're a little more stringent on those requirements. My only part of concern I'd like to note, and maybe Rob Long could answer, is the requirements for managing that hotel there. I heard 10 rooms, an app. I know that that's cool and new and everything, but like from a safety concern perspective, I'm hearing like somebody in the restaurant kind of checks you in, like, I could just see that maybe being a little bit of a problem. Not off the bat, I'm just thinking ahead. Thank you.
Other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of the meeting and go back to the board. Is there a motion from any board member on the issue?
Move it.
Second.
I'm sorry, who moved it? The mayor moved it, seconded by Howard. Any further discussion from board members? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No opposition, unanimously adopted.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
The next item on the agenda is the SID division budget, certification of the assessment rolls. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority approving and authorizing the certification of the Special Improvement District assessment roll for the period January 1, 2019 through December 31, 2019.
Any recusals? Matt, you want to talk about the description of the action requested?
Yes, sir. The Special Improvement District receives assessments from 1,182 commercial properties within the tourism district. The assessment imposed on the property owners is $38 for every $100,000 of assessed value, and this has not changed since 2011. The 2019 billing is based on 2018 property values of record, which total $1,311,012.42.
Okay, board discussion. Howard, it's been approved by the SID committee.
There was a public hearing on it last week, a week or so ago, and no comment on it.
Right.
So,
Any other board discussion? Public comment? Seeing none?
Motion.
Second.
Been moved by Ed, seconded by Mark. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered, unanimously carried. The next several items that we have on the agenda relate to the tourism marketing of the city. And what I want to say is that a true seaside resort destination is marked by a vibrant music scene. And today's series of actions deliver nightly entertainment to the Kennedy Plaza stage on the boardwalk this summer, including new offerings with a Chicken Bone Beach Jazz series and the Tribute Tuesday series that we are sure will deliver more visitors to the town. In essence, we will now have entertainment at Kennedy Plaza every night of the week, from Monday through Sunday. So we're going to go through a series of expenses here that relate to the events that are going to happen there, and we are spending about $1,050,000 to put this on for every night of the week at Kennedy Plaza, and I think it really does go toward part of our mission, which is to provide entertainment in the city. So the first item on the agenda is a tourism market expansion project. It's approval of an amendment to the project, a supplemental fund reservation amount not to exceed $175,000, and authorization to execute a grant agreement with 609 Event Productions, that's their name, for the Boardwalk Summer Concert Series at Kennedy Plaza. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority establishing a supplemental fund reservation in an amount not to exceed $175,000 from the Tourism District and Community Development Fund, and amending the Tourism Market Expansion Project to support the Boardwalk Summer Concert Events Program at Kennedy Plaza.
I might add that there's 9 3-day weekends involved here beginning July 6th, and it will be a combination of country, reggae, retro, hip-hop, Latin, and so on. For discussion. Public comment. Motion.
Wait, there's a comment.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
I'm actually BJ Hamilton, 609 Event Productions is my company. I just wanted to thank the board, the committee, Larry Sig for all his help. And last year was the first year we did this project. We did 27 shows, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. We're looking to run the same thing back again this year, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. We kind of found what worked good last year and what worked really well, so we're going to make those adjustments. We tried doing some stuff on Sunday afternoons. Really wasn't that popular just because of how hot it is and how sunny it is, and that sun just beats down on Kennedy Plaza. So we're going to move into strictly nights this year. We're going to go after a little bit bigger budget bands. Some of the solo artists we had up there, crowds were okay. As we got into bigger budgets, $2,500, $3,500 range, we found that the crowds engaged more. They came out to see the bands more. They hung out a little bit longer. But 27 shows. We start July 5th weekend, July 4th weekend, and we run all the way through Labor Day. If we have a cancellation for weather, we just reschedule and kind of push into September because the weather here is so good in September and October. So looking forward to it again this year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other comments from the public? Seeing none, motion to adopt.
Motion.
Moved by Debbie, seconded by, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. The second item is Tourism Market Expansion Project, approval of an amendment to the project. A supplemental fund reservation in amount not to exceed $250,000, an authorization to execute a grant agreement with Judy Ludi Productions for sponsorship of the 2019 Broadway on the Boardwalk series. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority establishing a supplemental fund reservation in an amount not to exceed $250,000 from the Tourism District and Community Development Fund and amending the Tourism Market Expansion Project to support the Broadway on the Boardwalk Summer Concert Events Program at Kennedy Plaza.
Any recusals? This is back again by popular demand. It's been expanded from 3 weeks last year to 8 weeks this year. It begins on July 9th. Board discussion.
Yes, this was a pleasant surprise to be able to see Broadway on the boardwalk. I went through there a couple times. It was very well received. Folks are very excited about having it back again. And again, this is just another way that I think Atlantic City should be actually marketing itself. I just have one caveat to that. Because we have so many parks and open spaces that surround the city, it'll be ideal to move some of these around in the different areas of the city, because again, the whole concept is to have folks moving around the city to be able to actually enjoy all aspects of the city. O'Donnell Park, Kennedy Plaza, you talk about Brighton Park, Garden Basin, and having the entire city be a platform for this type of environment.
Hear you. Other comments from board members?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I know one identified himself, and I know there's others here representing these organizations. Would that be a conversation you'd be open to?
Sure.
Right? I think we ought to, when anyone makes a suggestion, a good suggestion like that, we shouldn't just let it die here.
We
Follow
love
up
what we
on it.
established at Kennedy Plaza. It's a tremendous venue. But we certainly would be happy to work with the mayor and that fantastic woman, Ms. Bevilacqua, that you have there, and say, what do you want us to do? Put it together,
Where can
and
we go?
boom.
And
That's what a
right.
professional producer does, and that's what we would do.
Great, thank you.
Other comments from board members? Comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Judy Ludovico of Judy Ludi Productions, and I just want to say thank you so much. The Broadway community has really embraced Atlantic City, and the Broadway producers are excited to bring their shows down here, and the Broadway performers are ecstatic every time they get to perform on the boardwalk. So I just want to thank you again for making this available again this year.
Other comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, any idea for local or upcoming talent to be a part of this?
This is her project,
Oh,
not mine.
for Broadway? Ironically, some of the Broadway performers who are coming down are from the Philadelphia area.
Okay.
We've never asked if anybody was from Atlantic City, so the whole program is like the original cast members currently on Broadway performing.
Got it.
But I can talk to you and see if there's a way to, get some more inclusion with the local community.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Other comments from the public? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carol Ruffio. I'm president of the Chelsea Neighborhood Association. I served as the fundraising chairperson for the South Jersey AIDS Alliance for many years. And Broadway on the Boardwalk came from a fundraiser, our biggest fundraiser for the South Jersey AIDS Alliance. And we used to hold it at Caesars in their showroom. And the performers came from New York, but it was headed up by Kelly Briggs, who was on Broadway in Les Mis, and Keith Cooper, who was the entertainment director at Caesars. And they are now involved, and they reopened and reinvented the Gateway Theater in Somers Point. So if you want to have a local connection to Broadway on the Boardwalk, I would suggest that you get in touch with Kelly and Keith Cooper and maybe coordinate it with local talent that's here in Atlantic City that is up and coming on their way to go to Broadway.
We do a sing-off within part of the show where we get local people to come up and sing before the show. So, we could talk about expanding upon that. Do you have a card? Okay, great.
Other comments from the public?
I would just like to say that it's very, very important, and when I speak, I'm going to talk about making Atlantic City a destination for all the different entertainment niches that we have happening in this great world of ours. And the Broadway niche, of course, is very important, and Judy's done such a great job with it, and it's so great that we have all these people that are into Broadway coming to Kennedy Plaza on Monday night and seeing the finest Broadway entertainment. I think Judy deserves tremendous accolades and thanks, and so do you all.
Thank you, Carmen.
What you'll see with the rest of these is a pretty broad, a pretty broad spectrum of different types of music, and that's what we attempted to do. Any other public comments?
Yeah. I just had a question. How is that going to be? That's a wonderful program. I've been to it the past couple of years. And Tuesday, it's nice because I have a family member down in the summertime. But how is that going to be advertised a little bit better? Because a lot of these things that happen in Atlantic City, you find out about them the day after they happen. I mean, we can't rely on the local press.
So,
they do a very poor job. So
So
how
this-
can we get, New Yorkers and people from New Jersey?
So this past year, the advertising was digital, print, radio, outdoor, and social. So I had 33 bus shelters around Atlantic City. We had a TV spot running on the screens on the boardwalk. I had radio advertising with Town Square and Equity. I took out some ads in the Philadelphia Inquirer, did some digital advertising with the Inquirer. But this year I want to expand it to more a digital footprint, because with digital and social, I can laser focus people who are in this area in Philadelphia and New York who love Broadway to encourage them to come down.
Every Monday night?
It'll be every Monday night starting July the 8th, and it'll run for 8 consecutive Monday nights.
Other comments?
Do you have a card with you?
Hearing none, a motion to approve. I'm sorry, we're not, oh, Bill?
Now, I'm hearing all this entertainment going on for the summer. What about the winter? Now, we have this Boardwalk Hall down here, and you have Adrian Phillips Ballroom. When are we gonna start using that theater there to bring some shows during the winter? Let's use that theater a little bit more. It's big enough for a Broadway play or show. But let's start using that Adrian Phillips Ballroom at Boardwalk Hall. Please. I hear about here outside, that's nice, it's a summer resort. But let's think about the wintertime, when things are lean and people need some more work done going on in our city. Let's think about that, please. That's a beautiful theater. It's sitting there going to waste. Let's start using it a whole lot more.
Other comments? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to approve the resolution.
Move it.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Debbie seconded. Here, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. The next item on the agenda is Tourism Market Expansion Project. This is legalese that we have to read with this. Approval of amendment to the project, the supplemental fund reservation, an amount not to exceed $175,000, and authorization to execute a grant agreement with Tony Mart LLC for the CRDA Summer Series Mardi Gras AC. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority establishing a supplemental fund reservation in an amount not to exceed $175,000 from the Tourism District and Community Development Fund, and amending the Tourism Market Expansion Project to support the CRDA Summer Concert Series at Kennedy Plaza.
Any recusals? Tony Mart presents. Tony Mart's was a popular nightclub at the shore for years. New Orleans themed concerts including rhythm and blues, old school, and contemporary funk. 12 concerts beginning June 20th. Board discussion. Seeing none, public discussion. Yes, sir.
Okay. I am Carmen Murata. My father was Tony Mart, and I want to give you something more than just thanks. I want to give you a gift, and this is really, in all seriousness, you know, Nancy and I love the city. She was born and raised in Chelsea Heights. My father came from Sicily to Ducktown. Met my mother. They got married in St. Michael's in 1936. You know, and we're very proud. Last year we had a dozen phenomenal shows, every one highly received and critically tremendous, and so many people coming and thanking us constantly. Thanks to you all. But I want you to know that even though I'm really glad the casinos are doing so much better now, and bringing in so much more entertainment, their entertainment is in a certain box. And other entertainment exists in the world in huge proportions. For instance, the Broadway we talked about, but also these huge festivals, Americana music festivals, the Coachella Festival in California, where they have, you know, hundreds of thousands of people at the beach. Right here in New Jersey, the Crawfish Festival, which is the largest New Orleans music festival outside of Louisiana in the world. Tampa Bay Blues Festival, Philadelphia Folk Festival, and of course, the granddaddy of them all is the 50th anniversary of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. And we all know that's where American music was born and went to the world, in the city of New Orleans, up the river. And we celebrate that. That's why we call this Mardi Gras AC. And last year, you know, we had Taj Mahal, who headlines, and I hope you showed up that night. Taj, who's one of the greatest in the world, one of the greatest roots and Caribbean people, he headlines places like the Philadelphia Folk Festival. He'll be headlining the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. The night of the air show, we had Ivan Neville, who is the prince of the Neville brothers dynasty in New Orleans. And this year, Ivan Neville will be opening the show for the 50th anniversary, one of the biggest entertainment events in the world, maybe the biggest entertainment event in the world, the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage 50th anniversary with the Rolling Stones. And who's going to open for the Rolling Stones? Ivan Neville. And who played on that boardwalk last year because of what you did and what we did? Ivan Neville. And that's what we're talking about here. We have put us on the map of this roots music, blues music, New Orleans funk, New Orleans rhythm and blues, funk, all of that kind of music. We are really on the map. You can't go to one of these festivals we can't go to one of these festivals without somebody come up and saying, oh, we love what you do, thank you. So we want you to know that it's more than just we put on some concerts here. We have really created for Atlantic City a destination, a part of that network. And this year, we're going to have Ivan's uncle, hopefully, the great Cyril Neville, who is the greatest of the living, the youngest, so he's still the most active of the Neville brothers. And of course, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he's in the Grammy Hall of Fame, and we're hoping to have him among so many others. So that's the gift we've given you. And we want to also thank Frank Formica for bringing us here, the mayor, and Christina Bevilacqua, who was tremendous, and probably the hardest working professional I know around here. That guy over there, Larry Civic. Tremendous guy to work with. Thank you all so much.
I'll tell you what, if we didn't get excited before, we're excited now.
So you're bringing the Rolling Stones?
Okay, I knew that was going to happen. Ivan Neville is going to open for the Rolling Stones. That's who we brought. We're not bringing the Rolling Stones. Not for $175,000.
Next year.
And to second what Carmen just said, like these artists that he's bringing, I'm a huge fan of New Orleans Jazz Fest. I go every year. These artists are the Rolling Stones of New Orleans, and for people to be able to see these artists for free on the boardwalk is huge. These artists play New York, they play Philadelphia, they play all the major markets where you have to pay for a ticket to go see them, and because of what Carmen's doing, Atlantic City guests get to see it for free, and you can't beat that. What?
Residents too. Which entity brought Third World here?
We did. You were there with us. And I'm trying to get the Whalers this year if I can, Bob Marley's Whalers. I'm hoping, and we'd like to get third
I saw
world
Bob
again.
Marley too, just saying.
We're not gonna get Marley,
Time
right?
ago.
Will you be the critic for us and give us?
There's nothing to criticize.
A critic could be positive.
Okay.
You know, like the guys that write the critics.
In the newspaper?
Yeah.
I try not to read them.
I didn't say you had to read them, I just said give us the criticism. Okay, any further public comment?
Just
Yes.
to reiterate, I walk the boardwalk. You see me at your concerts. I don't know if you, because you don't know me, you've probably not seen me. Larry's seen me at these various concerts. The smiles on the faces are everywhere. And I bump into them all the time as they're walking by. They don't even know what's going on necessarily, but they know it's there. I keep saying, rebuild the carnival and the town will fill in. This is about entertainment. Atlantic City was always about entertainment, and every street and every strip had some kind of action on it. It's just like New Orleans. When you walk New Orleans, which adventure am I taking today, left or right?
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments? Hearing none, motion. Moved by Rich, is there a second?
Second.
Howard seconded it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. Thanks, Mo. Tourism Market Expansion Project approval and amendment to the project, the supplemental fund reservation in an amount not to exceed $150,000, and authorization to execute a grant agreement with the Chicken Bone Beach Historical Foundation to present the Chicken Bone Beach Jazz Concert Series at Kennedy Plaza. Reading of the resolution, Lisa.
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority establishing a supplemental fund reservation in an amount not to exceed $150,000 from the Tourism District and Community Development Fund and amending the Tourism Market Expansion Project to support the Chicken Bone Beach Jazz Concert Series at Kennedy Plaza.
This is back after a 4-year hiatus from Kennedy Plaza. It begins on July 4th. This is one of the traditions here in Atlantic City. Board discussion.
Yes, I'm very happy to see that Chicken Bone Beach Jazz entity is back in play. If you have not seen some of the things that they've done, I believe that they had a young jazz group play at one of our meetings. They also opened up a school over on the west side, so they're basically bringing a lot more than entertainment. They're actually teaching young folks how to play instruments. It's also, as you stated, is a homegrown entity, and it's something that we're very proud to continue to support, and we couldn't be more excited about having them back.
Other comments from board members?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say, as the only casino operator up here today, we could not be more thrilled with all of your efforts. Certainly I'll speak for resorts. Having been born and raised in Atlantic City, I do remember when there was entertainment in every nightclub, and I was in New Orleans a few months ago, and when you think about, you go from club to club to club, and you're seeing legends of people that are playing in these clubs. The casinos would love to see this continue and fill in the gaps of what we do. We just had Chubby Checker the other night. It was a great show, but it's also great, and I know Bill would have loved it. But we really, we'd love to see this all fill in nicely and as much as possible. So great work, and I applaud the board for this.
Thank you, Mark. Other comments from board members?
I'd just like to
Not after
reiterate,
that last one.
I think they're doing a great job. The advertising, I've worked down in Atlantic City, the advertising on these events is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's spectacular, but it's pretty good. But I would say the further you get away from the area, because I don't live in Atlantic City, I live about an hour away from here, many people don't have any idea these free events are going on. And I would encourage continue working with CRDA. Maybe we can take advantage of the Boardwalk Hall. They have a website that advertises all their upcoming pay events. There's no reason every one of these that we sponsor should be on the Boardwalk Hall website, indicating they're free and available in the time and day. Whatever other resources we have available to ourselves, even the CRDA website. Go to CRDA website, it should be on there as advertising, that it's free and available. So I just encourage you to keep doing a great job you're doing, but realize that you've got to get outside the provincial element of Atlantic City and Atlantic County in your advertising, I realize it costs money in many ways, but use all the free access you can get, because all these acts, and I believe that people would come, they recognize it. And whether they're down in the Cape May County area, because it's seasonal, or even in Ocean County area, they would come down. So whatever you can do to brainstorm beyond what you're doing now, I think is going to benefit in the long run Atlantic City, because the visitation will come.
Other comments from board members?
Just one, Mr. Chairman, if I could. Having the benefit of sitting on the Atlantic City Executive Council that met this morning, one of the topics of discussion is the coordination of all our marketing efforts and all the levels that are involved in that, whether it's jobs, careers. Howard, you and I shared conversations on this with the county, and certainly to all the arts that are provided in the city. So that message does get out bigger and broader and comprehensively as opposed to individually. So those efforts are going on for sure. All the participants, both those providing the entertainment and those of us that enjoy it.
Other board comments? Hearing none, any comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Mike Johnson. I'm on the board of Chicken Bone Beach, and I want to just thank all of you on behalf of Henrietta Shelton. I want to thank all of you from the CRDA for your support. I want to thank you, Matt. I want to thank the mayor. The mayor mentioned the school that we have, the jazz school that we have. We're also in the process of rehabbing a house that's located 726 North Indiana Avenue, and we will be teaching jazz year-round there to the youth from PAL and from the Boys and Girls Club and from the Atlantic City school system. And a special shout out to Larry, who's done a fantastic job of working with Chicken Bone Beach and working out some of the kinks. So we really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Henry Green, local activist, also part of the media. I wanted to congratulate Chicken Bone Beach on continued success. It's very important that we continue our culture in Atlantic City, and we're talking about all of the different entertainment and things like that that is going on. And I wanted to try to make sure that we continue to try to implement some of the locals into some of those things. I remember one time they used to have different spots on the boardwalk when Mr. Langford was in office, where they had sections for boardwalk entertainment. Atlantic City was about, back in the old days, Mr. Peanut Man, and all the different caricatures walking back and forth on the boardwalk, but also give us an opportunity in different places for some of the locals to demonstrate some of their talent. Club Harlem and a lot of those places where a lot of the African Americans used to come at, we're not even talking about those particular venues, that we're not even getting a chance to have those types of things on. Back at the Garden Basin, when we used to have the concerts in Garden Basins, the people in the community really, truly miss those concerts back there for the people, here in Atlantic City. I want to know if we can contribute or maybe add some of these different things like that for the community to show their talent, because we have a wealth of talent here in Atlantic City, but it's not being exposed and things like that. Thank you.
Other comments from the public?
Excuse me, Chairman Michael Epps, Executive Director of the Atlantic City Initiatives Project Office. To piggyback on Mr. Tolson's comments, we also had a presentation at the Executive Council today that there's going to be a coordinating calendar, and it's going to be interactive. So some of this information, provided we get it up and running, can go onto that calendar, and it can go out that way and can be disseminated to the folks who tap into our calendar. So we would be willing to work with the board to make certain that we get that information and we get it out the best that we can through the project office.
Thank you. Okay, yes.
Steve Young, Atlantic City, and I just want to say Kentucky for the Chicken Bone Beach is from this community, and I'm glad to see it's coming back to where it originally actually started from, right there on the boardwalk, in the middle where everyone can see it, and the job that they do with our youth is remarkable, and it's very important that we keep that culture going in our communities. And one thing about all these events are great, like you said, it needs to be some coordination. We do the Kentucky Avenue Renaissance Festival every year. And we'd be with stylistics, delphonics, whatever. But it's a start of keeping the culture alive. And it needs to be more events on the north side where people actually live at,
so they can know what's going on. And there's a lot of events that's on the boardwalk. All your events are great, but we need to know about it as a community because we want to be part of it as well. So the collaboration is very good, and we'd be willing to work with you on that because we need to have more of that collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to, I'm sorry, somebody?
Second.
All right, you, I don't even get it out before you're doing it. We have a motion and a second. Motion and a second. Any other further comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. And the last piece here, an approval of amendment to the project, a supplemental fund reservation in amount not to exceed $75,000, and authorization to execute a grant agreement with Mulhern Entertainment Incorporated to present the Tribute Tuesday concert series at Kennedy Plaza. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority establishing a supplemental fund reservation in an amount not to exceed $75,000 from the Tourism District and Community Development Fund and amending the Tourism Market Expansion Project to support the Tribute Tuesday concert series at Kennedy Plaza.
Any recusals? Matt?
This is new to Kennedy Plaza this year. It's 10 concerts beginning on July 2nd. One of the things that we tasked Larry with was essentially have music every night of the week and entertainment every night of the week up on the boardwalk. He's done a great job. The tribute bands include such bands you'll know as KISS and Aerosmith. We did try to get a Marilyn Manson tribute band for you, Chairman, but they were not available this summer.
I understand. If you knew the story, you'd further laugh. Board discussion. Public comment. Yes, sir.
I'm Dan Mulhern, owner of the
Hey,
company,
Dan.
and pleasure to be here. Would like to thank the board for this opportunity. Larry's been a tremendous help. We kind of looked at all the different programs that were being presented and just found that to be a really good niche that was different and just another option and another opportunity for people to come see some great entertainment. Tributes are increasingly getting bigger and bigger because it's the closest thing to the real thing, and there's a great appetite of customers out there that enjoy tribute bands in general. But thank you for this opportunity, and we're looking forward to being part of the Boardwalk Entertainment Program, and Carmen was incredibly inspiring, and we will make it a great program, I promise. Thank you.
Dan, thank you. Other comments from the public?
I just want to say that, you know, the tribute thing is huge, and that's another niche. And, you know, of course, this man is one of the primary movers in entertainment in this city, so we know he's going to do a great job.
Thank you.
I appreciate everybody's comments. I reiterate again, the CRDA is spending over $1 million to put this on so that we have something every night of the week. I think we're also very pleased and excited about the response that we've gotten, and we all look forward to this being a great summer, hopefully without the rain that we had last summer, and a lot of sunshine and happiness. A motion to approve.
Motion.
Moved by Debbie, second.
Second.
Seconded by Rob. You're seeing no further comment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and so ordered. The next item on the agenda is the 2019 Convention Center Division Capital Improvement Budget. Lisa?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority approving the Convention Center Division 2019 Capital Improvement Budget.
Any recusals? This is a big deal. Bill, I want you to pay attention to this because it gets to the issues you've been talking about. The 2019 Convention Center Division Capital Improvement Budget includes capital projects in the Atlantic City Convention Center, the Atlantic City Rail Terminal, and the Jim Whalen Boardwalk Hall, both east and west halls. Staff is requesting approval of the annual Convention Center Division Capital Expenditure Budget in amount of $40 million, $40,101,640, of which $21,251,640 represents ongoing projects carried over from the approved 2018 budget, along with $18,850,000 in the 2019 facilities capital budget items. Funds for the ongoing 2018 capital projects will come from project contingency fund balances. Our projects are completed and closed out in the amount of $956,875. This really will expense almost all of what we've got from the bond issue funds. If you were to look at the items, which you certainly can, and Matt can comment on it, there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done to make sure that particularly Whalen Hall does not, we do not let happen what's happened over the years, which is that we did not do maintenance that were required to keep it up. And so an awful lot of this is maintenance and improvements to the building and the facilities within the building. And hopefully we'll be able to provide more events because of this. And Bill, I wanted to make sure you heard this. Matt, do you want to comment about some of the things?
The only one caveat I want to add to this is included in this budget is $500,000 for arena football for their turf, goalposts, and padding. That is not going to be appropriated. Arena football is going to provide all that themselves. So while it's in the budget, it's not going to end up being spent. Again, that's $500,000.
Any other comment from board members?
In terms of the overall needs, how close does this investment get us to taking care of all the stuff that we're going to do?
The real focus was on health, safety issues, life safety issues. Some of the stuff that is really boring to talk about, but electrics, switches, some of this stuff runs into the millions of dollars. But I would tell you that beyond that, Boardwalk Hall is a very old, beautiful, historic building built in a very challenging area that gets beat up regularly by sea air. And the convention center is going on over 20 years at this point, so that needs upgrades as well. So we have to prioritize, but you hate to say that they're money pits, but you continue to spend money on both of these buildings with almost no limit because of what needs to get done, particularly Boardwalk Hall.
I do want to say that we went through a pretty rigorous process to determine the priority of what we were going to spend the money on and had to make some very difficult decisions. Other comment from board members? Hearing none, any comment from the public? Bill?
I have to say something here and put me on the spot like the whole program. But I mean, I'm glad to see that we're realizing that's a gym. Our city has a gym right there. The Oregon's the only one in the world that we have there, Boardwalk Hall. You know what I mean? And for you guys to be spending this kind of money, ladies, you know what I mean? It does me good to hear it. See, so I have to go back and start looking around a little bit more when I get there. But it's very important. I'm glad you're doing it, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for the work that you're doing on Boardwalk Hall. Boardwalk Hall is very near and dear to my heart. I'm born and raised in Atlantic City, and there was talk about, not improving the Boardwalk Hall, tearing down the Boardwalk Hall. I said I would chain myself to the front of it before you tore down Boardwalk Hall. The reason being, the plaque on the front of that building says that the mayor of Atlantic City, when it opened in 1927, was my grandfather. So I'm near to dear. I grew up running around Boardwalk Hall. When I was in Holy Spirit High School, and Holy Spirit and Atlantic High played their Thanksgiving Day football game, right, Bill? In Boardwalk Hall on the grass. I was in the band. I was the lead drummer, by the way. So it's really, I thank you so much for preserving Boardwalk Hall. And I hope it's there for many, many years after I'm gone. Thank you.
No, I appreciate very much your comments, and your comments are kind of like many of the comments we get from people who have this great feeling for the city. And part of what this board's trying to do is to bring that feeling back and then present the kinds of things that you heard with music every night here, so that we excite the people about what we have here.
Another thing I want to say that is sort of related to this is that I have the honor of serving on the Executive Council. As president of the Chelsea neighborhood, myself and Libby Wills, who is president of the Venice Park Civic Association, who are also the two only presidents that are founders of the Civic Associations of Atlantic City United, are asked to be on the Executive Council with many of you sitting in here today. And it's nice to be part of solving the problems in Atlantic City and being a part of moving Atlantic City forward, that they actually brought the citizens to the table for our input and to represent the residents of Atlantic City and not just the businesses that are here in Atlantic City. So I want to thank the mayor for putting us on that council. And we were at the meeting today, and there are subcommittees now being created. And one of them that's being created is Joe Gingoli, Libby Wills, and myself, Robert Lee, and Howard Kyle was in the meeting too, is to actually come up with a strategy within the next 4 weeks to have all the city streets in Atlantic City paved.
Yes.
So they are as old as Boardwalk Hall, you know, and it's time to look at the residential neighborhoods and get input from us so that we can grow our city, to have more residents to attend all these wonderful things that they're doing on the boardwalk, not just for tourists, but for us too.
Thank you. You know, you have two former mayors sitting here and one current mayor sitting here. So we understand your familial feeling.
Thank you.
I think I'd like to shed a little more history on the origin of Boardwalk Hall. While Carol's grandfather did open it, it was conceived originally by Nucky Johnson. And Nucky decided they needed a convention center. On that tract, that's a 7-acre tract of land, was a landward side amusement park. They had a fortunate fire. Suddenly they had land for the convention hall, and suddenly the convention hall was built. That's the truth.
I know.
Yes, sir.
Wondering, does the capital improvements and things like that, convention center, does the convention centers make any revenue? Any of the convention centers around, do they draw any revenue?
I mean, they bring in revenue, sure. I mean, all the shows and stuff, but are they necessarily profitable?
Yes.
No, but if you go and do research on convention centers throughout the United States, they're really not designed to be profitable. They're designed to bring people into the city, whatever city that is hosting them.
Let's put it this way, if there was no convention hall with conventions, we'd all be singing a different tune right now in Atlantic City.
A sadder tune.
Pretty sad. So they do a good job bringing a lot of business to Atlantic City.
Other comments from the public? Yes, Freeholder Frank.
You know, just on that subject with conventions, I couldn't agree more with Mr. Gintonio that it is our, carrying over lifeblood here through all things. But the CRDA puts a significant amount of paper into the convention center. And right now, give you just what I've heard from, I'm sure Jim would have, I don't know if he's here or not, will tell you, we have 5 gate shows that we're finishing up with, 5 gate shows coming through here now. We started with Bath and, I can't think what it was, Bath and Spa, Pool and Spa, and then we had the car show, and we got the camper show, then we got the boat show, and we have the beer festival. Every one of those promoters makes their money at the gate. And they're so concerned about the train coming here that they're now saying that they will not guarantee their booking next year, because if they're down 5,000 people over 3 days at $30 a head, that's their profit, $150,000. So with a stake that the CRDA has in, supporting the convention center, we got to make a lot of noise about why they can't get 2 engines from another 112 lines that are operating, and 7 cars and 5 operators, 5 engineers and maintenance people. The other 112 lines. I had this discussion with Senate President Sweeney, and he's infuriated. We should be infuriated here and making a bigger noise about it, because if we lose those gate shows, then we'll start talking about Mark's other discussion.
No question.
Make a big noise.
I don't think that we've had any difference of opinion on that issue, and we'll do everything we can.
But you know, and then the other thing was, 11 years ago, we had trouble with equipment. There are 2 diesel engines sitting at SEPTA right now with 24 cars. Nobody's made an attempt to try to even get them down here on our lines. They're all the same, 4 8.5 gauge. So I'm just talking about your investment here on one end with the convention center, and these trains just undermining everything we're trying to do.
Marshall, do you want to offer those comments?
Yeah, to the Freeholders' point, this Thursday at 6 o'clock at the train station at the convention center, the leadership of NJ Transit is coming down to answer questions and hopefully provide us answers about when the train's going to be here.
In all due respect, Marshall, I mean, I talked to John Del Cole, everybody talked to a lot of people, I'm sure Denny did, not them anybody special, but it's time for them to come up with at least giving us a guarantee that it's going to go on, whenever it is. I'm sorry that I'm just passionate about it.
I don't think anybody disagrees with you, Frank.
No.
Okay, when it comes to the convention center and Boardwalk Hall, the revenue generated has a lot to do with the marketing and advertising. And if you can come up with some money to fix it up, you can come up with some money for advertising and marketing. Because if you're gonna be in competition, you got to sell yourself.
Well, you spend a lot of money for marketing and advertising through Jim Wood. How much, 6 million? 8 million we spend for that.
We need to look at that a little more, because are you getting a buck for your money?
Yeah.
And that's just
look,
just a thought.
There's a little bit of history here. The ACA was formed and funded with $30 million a year to do what is not being done today, and we're trying to pick up the pieces here to fill in. And at the same time, you got to remember that we're also funding $24 million a year of bonds for the city debt that goes until 2026. So there's a finite number of dollars that we have in this agency to accomplish these things. And we have a separate entity, Meet AC, that's responsible for booking the convention center and the hotels. So all of these things come into how we have to juggle what we're doing. We all agree that the train and the rail connection has to be fixed. There is no question about that. And they have to understand, and we will make them understand, that failure to do so is going to cost us significantly here. Other comments from the public? Bill?
Well, first place, I wouldn't leave here without saying something about this train. I remember several years ago, before casinos, I stood up and said the same thing that they were trying to do way back then. That was before casinos. They were trying to stop the trains from coming here, way back. And I howled and screamed then. Only little citizen jumped up and screamed about the trains coming to Atlantic City. And the man said, "Do you ride the train?" I said, "No." So I don't ride the train, but I know how important those trains coming to Atlantic City is to our city. And I know to of us to lose it, stand here and lose it, we're out of our cotton-picking minds. And whatever it takes to fight for it, we need to do that. All of us need to do that.
Well, we're on a real effort to get this accomplished. Other comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment portion of the meeting and accept a motion from the board.
Motion.
Been moved by Ed, or a second?
Second.
Seconded by Michael. Any further discussion from board members? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The budget is adopted. Thanks, Mo. Next item on the agenda is engineering services, an approval to reject all bids. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority rejecting all proposals received for as-needed engineering services.
Okay, Matt, you want to describe the process
Sure, this
here?
is a resolution to reject bids received. The bid process was public advertised in Progressive AC and the Crda Post on September 14th and the 15th of 2018. CRDA received 7 bids. The staff reviewed the submissions and concluded that the scope of services in the solicitation appears to have been too broad for any of the above, or any of the 7 firms to meet all the required disciplines outlined. The recommendation therefore is to reject all bids, and staff plans to reissue a solicitation as 2 separate RFPs, one for civil engineering services and the other for regular engineering services.
Board discussion. Public comment. Motion.
Second.
Move.
Moved by Eddie,
In
seconded by
what
Rich.
other order you want to use?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of?
Aye.
All opposed? So ordered. The next item on the agenda is a administrative one, designation of the Ethics Liaison Officer and an alternate. Approve the designation of Robert Gosser as Ethics Liaison Officer and Tia Lee as alternate Ethics Liaison Officer for the authority pursuant to the New Jersey Code of Ethics Act. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority designating individuals to serve as ethics liaison officer and alternate ethics liaison officer.
This came about because our former Human Service Manager, Kimberly Ward, who also served as the Ethics Liaison Officer, resigned her position with the authority on January 18th. Bob Gosser, who's the new Director of Human Resources here, will become the Ethics Officer, and as we said before, Tia Lee will be the alternate. Board discussion. Public comment. Hearing none.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Ed, seconded by Rob. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. Is this right? Next is the Computer Network Administration Services authorization to award a contract to Ansero LLC in an amount not to exceed $45,000 annually for services on an as-needed basis. Lisa?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority awarding a professional services agreement to Insero LLC for computer network administration services for March 1st, 2020, with a total spending authorization not to exceed $45,000.
Matt?
This is a as-needed contract award. We currently have one person who manages all of our IT needs on staff. This would be to supplement him. The authority received 4 proposals. The due date was back in November 30th. Ansero, which is the recommendation for award, JDL Group, Novo Qual IT, and First Look Technologies, all bid, and the evaluation committee recommends Ansero LLC for the award.
Board discussion. This was discussed in committee and approved by committee after a long discussion today. Public comment. Seeing none, motion?
Moved.
Moved by Rich, seconded. Jim?
Second.
Seconded by Ed. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. The last item on the action agenda is public auction of CRDA-owned property. Authorization to accept bids and consummate the sale of auction properties. Lisa, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority accepting the bids and approving the sale of surplus property in Atlantic City auction to the public.
As you know, we did put some properties up for auction. They're surplus that we declared and no longer needed for authority purposes. It was advertised through the press release and CRDA website to create a broad awareness. There were 6 non-conforming lots inside the tourism district and they were offered for public purpose. The auction took place on February 7th with only one package generating multiple bids. All parcels were auctioned off to the highest bidder. I think we had a discussion today as to what to do. As I recall, Matt, the assessed value was about $500,000.
For the total amount, I don't know exactly what the total amount was, but there were 6 bids received. Out of those, the recommendation is to accept 3 of them and then reject 3 of those offers. And again, these are all non-conforming lots in the tourism district that CRDA currently has.
My point about this is that the total amount of money generated for what was assessed at such a high amount was $22,800. So I think the motion of the committee was we were going to approve the sale of 3, and the other 3 that we had a $100 bid on, we were going to give to the city. Isn't that where we agreed?
That's accurate.
So it's a little bit of a change because of the committee action.
Well, for the purposes of this resolution, it would be to accept 3.
The 3 bids.
Reject 3, and then we would have to have a separate
Second,
resolution
fine.
on another day, transferring
to the
the
city.
other property to the city.
Okay, but we all understand what we're doing here. The one bid was $19,000, that was the bulk of it. There were 2 other bids for $1,000. So we're accepting those 3 bids, which were numbers 1, 5, and 6, and rejecting 2, 3, and 4. So I would ask for a any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment? Yes, Jim.
I think I'd like to comment. I attended that auction. I attended the auction just to see what I could see. The piece that went, there were 2 neighbors with the non-conforming piece bidding on that piece. It was a healthy auction. There was no other healthy market. Now, the reason I point this out is in a healthy real estate market, non-conforming pieces don't matter. They become spoilers. People buy them just to have them. No one wanted these. And that has a lot to do with the undeveloped nature of the inlet and sitting there fallow for 50 years. Thank you.
Other comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to approve 3 and reject 2, 3, and 4.
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. So as a matter of action in the future, then, well, we will have to have a separate resolution to turn this over, or can we do it now?
Separate resolution.
We can do it now?
No, subsequent.
Okay, so we'll do it at the next meeting. Okay, we come to the public comment portion of the meeting. I think we've had a great deal of public comment today. Is there anybody, that wants to add anything new?
Actually, I would like to. You've appropriated a significant amount of funds in support of this entertainment program for Kennedy Plaza. Some of you may know that I own a company that does audiovisual event production, and I've actually serviced a couple of the people that have these events. One of the challenges with working at Kennedy Plaza is actually access in terms of getting the truck there. And even though we can have a permit from the city, you don't want to drive a truck on a boardwalk on a Saturday afternoon to get your gear on and off. And it also is, there's actually a real parking problem for the artists to perform. So I made a suggestion last year, why can't we utilize the West Hall, Boardwalk Hall to help support these activities? Because it's a very short push across the boardwalk at that point. It provides secure parking, parking for the trucks, everything else. And I really think that those mechanics need to be put into place to help to make it even more successful.
Larry, can we have a...
Yeah, actually, we can definitely take a look into it. So I can talk to Jim Wincoop with Spectra, and I just want to make sure that the hall is accessible in an evening like that, and how late it's accessible.
Well, I believe it's accessible. I think the challenge comes down to who's going to pay for the security.
After 9 o'clock.
Yeah, who's going to pay for the security ends up being the problem. Because I did it years ago for the Alliance when they had different programs. But somehow, something has changed. And since you folks are the ones in charge of Boardwalk Hall, if you come to the conclusion that it makes sense to have this be a supporting facility for Kennedy Plaza, then we can just get it done. I don't want to go through semantics of,
I think the question has to be asked of the vendors as well, of where they feel, being their expertise of putting on these productions, of where it's best suited.
well, you got most of the vendors here in the room, and I think that they would know.
I don't know that now's the time. Well, we, as we stated earlier, we're going to have the discussion, as the mayor brought up, of having alternative sites. The East Hall is another one that wasn't mentioned, that with those that are the promoters, if you would, that we can have those discussions.
Okay.
Other comments?
I had one
Yes.
other thing I wanted to mention.
Yes.
Obviously, everybody's talking about the train situation. You're upset New Jersey Transit's not going to operate it, or they're not giving them a clear answer. My estimation is that they don't want to operate it. And what I've been telling people is that you don't necessarily need New Jersey Transit to operate this train. You can contract with third-party operators to run your own service. And that's a discussion that needs to be expanded upon if they decide, hey, we're not going to do it. because they're basically giving everybody the answer. And I think the bigger issue is that other than legislative action, I'm not sure how you can force them to do what they don't want to do. And we can't go into the summer of 2019 without having a train running. That is not a good look for the developers. And I would suggest that at the point that it does come back online, that you might want to consider a marketing program where you might give a free eastbound train ride for 2-3 weeks in exchange for an email address that could be put into a marketing database.
Other comments? Yes, sir.
Sister Jeans, that situation, I don't know if you guys, how much involvement you guys have with Sister Jeans and as far as what's going on with that, but it's really a resource for the community that right now many people are searching on how to eat or what they're going to do next with supplying these particular services. And I don't know if you guys can do anything or not do anything, or if you've done what you could do. I just wanted to know a little bit more about that because I'm not sure.
Department of Community Affairs and the city have taken the lead on this and have done a very good job ensuring that there were alternative facilities for people to go to. So, Ron, you want to talk about this, or Mayor?
Well, we've been working with the Board of Sister Jeans and the city to try to find an alternative location for them. The facility that they were using had to be shut down for life safety issues. So far, I've not identified another alternative location for them, but the rescue mission has offered to provide all the meals to anybody who is going to Sister Jean's, and we've also made arrangements for transportation from the Sister Jean's site over to the rescue mission. So I know it's not an ideal set of situation, but we're still looking for an alternative site for them to set up that operation. Haven't identified it yet.
From my understanding, you guys allocated funds for repairs of the facilities, or am I incorrect about that?
No.
That's not true. We had allocated money if they were going to move, but it hasn't been done. It was over, I don't know how many years ago that we made the reservation of the money, and we could never reach agreement with them.
So a grant was offered a number of years ago, but that expired when that move proved not to be feasible because they needed more money than the amount of the grant.
Other comments from the public? Yes.
I want to go back to the railroad situation that they're talking about, which came up at the Executive Council today also. The trains coming into Atlantic City are sparse when they were running at best. And New Jersey Transit is New Jersey Transit. But there used to be a train, what was talked about today was bringing people to live to Atlantic City to grow the residential area in Atlantic City and bring vibrancy back to the city. And the thing is how do you get the people from New York? There used to be a train that came in every morning from New York and left at 7:05 every night to go back to New York. It was an Amtrak train. It stopped running, and all we had was a train that, to get from New York to Atlantic City, you had to go through North Jersey to Philadelphia to New Jersey and back again. It's still a 4-hour trip no matter how you look at it. So, I don't know, maybe we should take another look at the Amtrak train that used to run directly from the, 30th Street? No, what's the station in New York?
Yeah, 30th.
No, 30th Street is Philadelphia.
Penn Station.
No, I'm talking about
New York Penn Station.
Penn Station in New York, right to Atlantic City and back again. Because I used to hear it when I lived on Chelsea Avenue, coming in every night and leaving every morning.
Thank you. Other comments from the public?
Yes. Steve Youngin, you know, been coming here for years, and this time we have an agenda that we're passing out. We're part of a coalition of community, grassroots, black men called the Black Men United that has gotten together to have an agenda to talk about some of the solutions in Atlantic City. Not be part of the problem, part of the solution. And there's no better way than the people at the grassroots level to pick themselves up out of bootstraps if they have some straps to strap them up with. So we ask them to communicate and talk about the transparency and the accountability with government. Government has been spending billions and billions of dollars with the best business people in the world and the best minds in the world coming here with top dollars for our city to look the way it is. If there's a solution to it, to working together, Black Men United is a grassroots coalition of New Jersey, collective of local grassroots nonprofits, professional, businesses, activists, and community leaders seeks to install a social economy in the city of Atlantic City. Given our history of slavery, systematic racism, New Jersey state takeover, and ongoing economic oppression, we have highlight and create a black economic agenda as a form of restorative justice, as one of the first steps in the installment of a social economy for the Atlantic City, County, and the state of New Jersey. Though the truth and justice are necessary for the promotion of social cohesion, the practice of cooperation, and the creation of true community. The black agenda will serve as a best practice model for elected officials, candidates, and upcoming elected coalition members and concerned citizens. What I just handed out is for your review and consideration. A list of initiatives and proposals will facilitate the creation of a formal black agenda for Atlantic City and spark the change required to move the entire Atlantic City, county, and state forward. Some of the things are the end poverty, community policing and criminal justice reform, expansion of black wealth, transparent, accountable, and responsible local government, education, affordable housing, health, and welfare. We're just talking from the grassroots level. There's a lot of people coming home from college and universities as well as in prison. They have certificates and different backgrounds that want to improve their community, and they're coming together to do that. We just want some cooperation. We have met with the mayor. We're going to meet with Sheila Oliver, the lieutenant governor, and others, so we can communicate together, so we can move forward. So I ask you to consider that, and we would like to set up a meeting with you as the executive director to talk about this moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. Young, question that I asked a lot of activists. Have you been to city council with that proposal?
We're going there tomorrow.
Thank you. Please do.
You know, there are two of the items here we've taken action on recently. One is the community policing, or we're about to take action on coming up. The second is the healthcare issue, where we've approved the initial plan for Atlantic Healthcare. So there is a lot of initiatives here that this board is doing that are on the list to approve and to help the situation. Other comments?
Just one more comment. Oh, go ahead, you were up. In answering about going to city council, the cooperation about which he speaks is very important. And being challenged to go to city council here,
It wasn't challenged, it was a question.
the answer was yes, I had been, and then I stopped going. But here's where I'm going with my statement, sir. I've decided to run for city council to try and forge a better working relationship between the city and the CRDA. You guys, whether you know it or not, are the most hated entity in town by the residents.
That's an opinion that I don't necessarily agree with.
But there are many who would stand up and agree with me in this room.
It's
if
not
they
the
had the
residents of
courage.
Atlantic City. I don't want to debate with you the hate.
I'm trying to say to you
Thank you.
that there is a place for council. It's not a place for argument. Ours is to move the city forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will make two comments. One is the last mayor decided to be very negative about the CRDA, and nobody stood up. And I think that when you look at this body, part of it is that some of the good things that have happened here don't get out. The second thing is, I'm not sure the mayor will agree that we're not working together right now.
I see far more cooperation than I've seen ever. Thank you.
Other comments from the public?
Yes.
Yes.
Sean Reardon, a Atlantic City resident, as I said before. I came in today just to talk about the area that you guys in your master plan put as the Galleria District, which, if you're not familiar, that's between Boardwalk Hall and Tropicana on the beach blocks. The area is kind of significant in nature just because it's one of the last residential beach block areas that is still with 80+% of its housing intact, unlike the inlet where most of that's been torn down. The reason I want to talk today is because the current zoning that you guys enacted for that area excluded allowing single families and duplexes. And a lot of those properties in that area, the vast majority are in fact row homes that were built in the early 1900s that are just that, single families and duplexes. So I find it counterproductive to rule these properties out, or per se zone these properties out. You know, we have a true trash problem down there because all of these row homes have been chopped up over the years, and they were granted land uses for having a triplex in a single family home and so forth. And the process that you guys have created to deconvert these is actually quite costly for a developer, such as myself, who is dealing with that sort of process, where I have a property on South Bellevue Ave. It is 10.5 feet wide, and somebody got a land use for a triplex in this property. Now, once you had a staircase in, you have 7.5 feet left. I don't know how you could start having a new unit on each floor when you have 7.5 feet left. The properties were designed single family. Now, when you have to go through a variance to convert it back to a single family and pay all these money in different professional fees and CRDA fees, it's counterintuitive to what we're really doing here, which is trying to, you know, like what Jim Johnson says, is re-envisioning what we already have, repurposing, restoring. You just said, Chairman, that you guys you want to take an action to restore that old term. I think when you were talking about Boardwalk Hall, this is just that. And if there's going to be these roadblocks in the way, I don't think you're going to see real improvement in terms of quality of living for these people that are in this neighborhood. I don't think you're going to see the trash problem improve. And I would just like I'd invite anybody to come down there and please just take a look. Because anybody who has two eyes could look at this and say, this can't be a triplex. And chopping these places up is where we got ourselves in the problem that we're in. Thank you for your time.
Other comments from the public?
You know, we're starting to see arguments here, disagreements. That's not going to work. It's just not going to work. We either got to get our heads together and start working together and stop this bickering back and forth. That's what it sounds like to me. Now, y'all can give it another name all you want, but that's what it sounds like. And we're not going to get nowhere doing all that, ladies and gentlemen. You got to be on the same accord. We have to be on the same accord. This CRDA members on this board have been trying to work together to do that. Now, whether their message is getting out to the public enough, I don't know why. Because I come here every time I can. They also can come here and find out what's going on. Now, maybe you need to get a larger hall. But everybody has their opinions. And their opinions, if they're not on the same accord with the goal in mind for everybody, we're not going to get anywhere, ladies and gentlemen.
Bill, I think that I understand what you're saying, but I resent the fact that people think that we're not trying to be cooperative in the city. We're open to anybody, and we've said that for a long time. And we've had that discussion with the mayor. We've proved that by funding a series of things, including the project office. I think this body has bent over backwards to try and improve Atlantic City. We've been open to anybody who came in here with a logical, rational plan. Now, I said before, there's a finite amount of money that we have too. It's not like the old days when we could come up and put out the kind of money that we used to put out. We don't have it anymore for a lot of reasons, and part of which I explained. But I don't know anybody on this board that has not in any discussion ever wanted to be cooperative for things they felt were good for Atlantic City.
Yeah, I know that.
And if anybody disagrees with me, they can disagree. But I look around at this board and the people here and what they represent, and they care about what happens in Atlantic City.
Well, we need to stop having this attitude of wanting this way and that way. It's got to be on the same accord, ladies and gentlemen. And that's for the citizens of Atlantic City, as well as these officers that are here.
Absolutely.
Have to work together. That's the key to the whole success. Period. When we start this bickering back and forth, You know, I still say I lived in a segregated town. Segregated town this was. And we lived better then than we live in now because of all this argument, fussing back and forth. That's all I can say. We can do better if we work together, and that means the audience as well as men and ladies around this table. And this arguing and fussing is not going to work, ladies and gentlemen. No matter how small it is or how big it is, it's not going to work. Period. I don't care about your philosophies. I don't care about what political party you belong to. I could care less. But you need to stop fussing and arguing about this and about that. This is one city. Black, white, green, and orange, and purple. Period. And we need to stop segregating ourselves with our talk. And I hear that with some of you. Not you guys around this table. I didn't say that. I said the people that's in this audience.
I hear you, Bill.
Now, I'm getting tired. You guys gonna close this meeting or what?
And other comments from the public?
Yeah, I'm gonna step up and say something. All right, my name is James King L. of Vibe 609 Radio, local radio station. And I talk to a lot of the general public on a regular basis. And I will say that they disappointed with all parties. The police department, the city council, CRDA, all together. And it's very true that there's a big disconnect between the people and the officials. Somehow that has to change. That's about all I have to say.
You know, you sat through the whole thing today. Look at the
Yes.
things that were approved by this board for the environment of the city. I don't know how anybody can say that having spent the money that we're doing and putting the things on, that we're not trying to look out for the people of Atlantic City. And we've been willing to do this.
Yes. I was still listening. You was done? What I'm gonna say is, I don't disagree with that. I believe what I heard today, everything was pretty much good. But what I'm saying is, the public don't know. On my platform, I'm gonna make sure they do. So I'm gonna be a big part of that change we talking about. And I agree with almost everything I heard just about in here today. But the public did not know anything about what's been going on for a long time. So now we are. That's what I'm saying.
And I appreciate that. And I also want you to understand from what I said about the people around here in this board that are, look, part of what we did, and I was part of writing the plan, was to stop sending money out of Atlantic City around the state. That happened with S11 and S12 when those bills were adopted, and that was to get the money back into Atlantic City. And from a time when it was political and you had money going all over the state. I helped write that and to pass the bill because I felt that if this was our function, and the CRDA is the only one of its kind in the country. It's really a very special kind of organization. And part of that feeling was that we had to spend the money here, we had to work with the people here, because that was our function, not anything else. And I don't think there's anybody that sits on this board that has any kind of personal attachment to their own personal gain in Atlantic City. They all want to do the best thing. We listen to everything that people say. Sometimes we can't do it, sometimes they're wrong, and we try and point that out in a way that's responsible. But we're here to make Atlantic City a better place, and we want to do that. And I think that, you know, I'm happy you raised the issue because you were very decent in saying that you agreed with what you heard here. And I appreciate that because it starts to get the message to the community that we are here to do things, and we are here to do it for Atlantic City. And when you think about the fact that we're sending $24 million a year that we used to have to do things, to pay the bonds off for the city council, you begin to understand how our dollars get to be finite. And that's not our fault. We were asked to do that. Just like we've been asked to do a series of other things, some of which are going to be coming up in the future, some of which was the Atlantic Care building for healthcare. And one of the things that we specifically said is that we had to lower the mortality rate for infant births in this city. And I've spent 30 years on hospital boards. You don't allow that to happen because there's no need for that to happen. And we're writing that specifically into the grant money that we're giving for the building, so that when you start to look at the things that we're trying to do as a board to improve things that are here, we're responding to the kinds of issues that we think are important for the city. Healthcare is certainly one of them. Part of what we're writing into that is nutrition, and the ability to give people the nutrition and the food that they need to do better their lives. So that there's a lot of things that we're doing that don't get the kind of, I guess, response in the community. But your being here and everybody else that's here have the ability to talk to us, go back to the community and say, hey, those people that sit around this table really do care, and they really are trying to be careful with the money that we do have to do what we do and to make life better in the city. So I appreciate what you said. And I appreciate the fact that you said that you had understood what I said. And I think that I speak for everybody on this board when it comes to what our mission is and what our role is and what we want to do. We have no individual agendas here. Our agenda is one. The governor has an agenda for Atlantic City. We're here to implement it, and we intend to do that, and we're doing it through the kinds of things that you saw today. Last month, we approved a preliminary plan for Atlantic here that involves about $18 million from us. But we're writing into it the things that I talked about in terms of infant mortality, in terms of nutrition, in terms of dialysis, and in the other things that we feel are needed in the city. So I appreciate your comment. I also don't want to take a long time here, but I think it's important that everybody understands how the members of this board feel and what they feel their mission is and what we want to do. We don't always do the right thing. We make mistakes. We're human beings, but I will tell you this, we're trying very hard to meet the mandates and the needs of the city. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
I just want to piggyback on that. The public doesn't seem to know there's different opinions about the CRDA over the years, but I think that it's beginning to change, and you have more opportunity to work and get your word out there. And it starts with Matt is coming to the Chelsea Neighborhood Association this Thursday night. We meet the third Thursday of every month at 7:30 at Stockton University, and he's going to be there to address the members of the Chelsea Neighborhood Association, which is the biggest association in Atlantic City. It covers the 5th Ward, 6th Ward, and part of the 4th Ward. So we appreciate his taking his time to come out and speak to the residents and hear from the residents. And I think that was made apparent during the big town hall meeting that we had at Boardwalk Hall, that we thought we were going to have 100 residents, and we had 500 residents. And the fact that we were listening to them, and now that the executive director of the CRDA is going to reach out and come to the civic associations to speak, is going to speak louder than anything that we could ever put in the paper or in an article anywhere.
Well, the word of mouth is better than anything else.
And the appearance of the executive director is huge.
Other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Again, BJ Hamilton, Search 9 Event Productions. On behalf of everyone for the summer entertainment, thank the board once again for pushing it all through. I'm also a resident of Atlantic City, Lower Chelsea, and I just want to say, given that they took away, the ACA, the Atlantic City Alliance, and their $30 million budget, we guys are left to market this city with and provide entertainment with, I think you're doing an excellent job. And ladies and gentlemen, keep up the good work. This is $1 million worth of entertainment coming through this summer, and let I remind everybody that this is free entertainment. 7 days a week, city residents can get up to the boardwalk and see a Broadway show, a jazz festival, all different kinds of music, a tribute band. So let's keep that in mind, and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
I think that's a good comment to end the meeting on.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a comment. In listening to Mr. Reardon's complaint about turning a single-family home into a triplex, I live in the area, so I've known his plight. But yesterday, I met a new neighbor that bought a house near me, right near there. And I introduced myself, and he said he's going to be living there. I said, well, what are you going to do with it? This was a vacant place for a long while. And he said, well, I have to make it a triplex. I'm looking at it, I'm like, are you kidding? How can it be a triplex? So, with the chairman just talked about Crda's going to have a rational, practical, logical plan. I need to understand, and this is a question. Maybe you people didn't know this. I know most of you don't live. The mayor lives here. I know he knows, but he's been in the area. He could attest to that. I want to know how it's a good idea, a practical, logical, practical idea, to take a single-family narrow house and force buyers to make it a triplex. How does that make sense? Even if it used to be at one time, even if there used to be a sink down in the basement, what's the plan that's a good idea for the city, the beach block? This would be a better way if we had triplexes and all that means, and parking and all that. I want to hear why it's a good idea.
I think what you should do is confer with Lance, our
No,
land.
My question is, I know Lance knows all about it. I think he's the one that made the zoning ordinance. I don't know if you just leave things up to him, or did you people know? I mean, it wouldn't be in any city that each of you live, if your next door neighbor was going to turn this place into, or if he had to turn it into a triplex. It doesn't make sense anywhere, or am I wrong and it doesn't make sense? Is it the way you do in Linwood and other places, any place else? How could it be?
Well, I would ask you to give us a little time to do some research on it. You want to come
So
back?
you didn't know about it?
I'm just asking you to give us a little time to do research on it, and if you leave your name and a way to get a hold of you, we'll get you the answer you want, or the answer you're looking for, I'm sorry.
Maybe other people have the same question.
Okay, other comments from the public?
I think that to follow up on what he said, I think that when they did a blanket tourism district from one end to the other, that these single-family homes got put into this tourism district, thinking that some big casino was going to come in and buy up all those single-family homes and tear it down and build something huge on the boardwalk. So, and this is years ago. This is not you. This is years ago when they did a blanket thing like that. And to have a lot of these, in Lower Chelsea, we're having a problem because the big, beautiful, single-family homes that were there since I was a kid have all been turned into rooming houses, Airbnbs, recovery homes, whatever, all in Lower Chelsea, in the beach block. And this is beach block also, and it's smaller homes, but they were vibrant single-family homes where the kids grew up and went to Star of the Sea or whatever, and they want to maintain that kind of neighborhood, but they're finding that they can't. It's not that they can't. I think that the people that are coming in that are not Atlantic City residents just think, well, they're just going to take this house and they're going to bring 4 families to live with them, and they're all related, and that single-family neighborhood is zoned differently than other single-family neighborhoods in the city because it's now in the tourism district. And that's what the challenge is.
Sean, I believe you're being told you cannot renovate a single-family house that's a 12-foot wide row into a single-family home. It has to be made a triplex, correct?
Yes.
We are writing the laws. We're trying to conform the neighborhood to the laws instead of the laws to the neighborhood.
Exactly.
And we don't want to be in contention. All of us here want to be in partnership, moving the city forward. So there are exceptions, and I've been on the wrong end, and Lance, you were not the guy, but I've been on the wrong end of receiving. Some of the things that come out are preposterous, and that's what has the residents frustrated. Some of the things are preposterous. Thank you for moving in the right direction. Thank the state and Sheila Oliver and the mayor for moving in the right direction. I believe we're headed there. But the input of the people is more important than you may think. Because what you tell Sean, he tells Sonny, who tells me, who tells Carol, who tells Steve, who tells right on down the line. So we are a self-contained community. We know each other. We used to get along and work. Now we're factionalized when we shouldn't be factionalized or fractionalized. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Any other comments from the public? Hearing none, we are going into executive session. I expect one administrative resolution to come out of it. Anybody's welcome to stay here if they wish. I'll accept the motion to close the public meeting. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Is anybody out there?
Yeah, just this gentleman.
Okay. We've approved the motion to reopen the public meeting. We do have one resolution. And I'll ask the legal counsel to read it.
Resolution of the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority approving the disclosure of certain executive session meeting minutes in accordance with the Senator Byron M. Bear Open Public Meetings Act.
Is there a motion?
Move it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.